My name is Emily Carson. I'm 42 years old, divorced and living alone in a quiet neighborhood on the edge of Portland. For the past few years, life has been a routine and not a particularly exciting one. I work remotely as a freelance editor, which means I spend most of my days inside the house tapping away on my laptop, drinking far too much coffee, and talking to my cat Luna as if she understands me. 3 years ago, my husband Mark and I finalized our divorce. It wasn't messy, just sad. We grew apart slowly, like two people drifting on separate rafts in a wide ocean. There was no betrayal, no blow-up, just a cold distance that neither of us tried hard enough to cross. Since then, I've been living a life that, while stable, felt a bit hollow. It was on a Thursday evening in October that everything began to change. Rain poured outside in sheets and I hadn't eaten all day. I scrolled through the food delivery apps craving something warm and finally settled on Alfredo pasta from a local Italian place called Marco's Kitchen. I clicked order and curled up under a blanket to wait. About 30 minutes later, the doorbell rang. I opened the door and saw a young man standing on my porch, dripping wet, but smiling politely. He couldn't have been more than 18. He wore a red raincoat that clung to his shoulders and held a paper bag in one hand. "Delivery for Emily?" he asked, brushing wet strands of hair from his forehead. "Yes, that's me," I said, taking the food. I noticed how soaked he was. "Wow, you must be freezing." He laughed lightly. "It's part of the job. It's not so bad once you get used to it." I handed him a tip in cash, but he shook his head. "It's okay, ma'am. Stay dry and enjoy your dinner." Something about the way he said it stuck with me. It wasn't just polite, it was genuine. As I watched him walk back through the rain toward his bike, I felt an odd pull in my chest. He shrugged it off and went back inside. The following week, on another cold evening, I found myself craving pasta again. Maybe it was the comfort of the meal. Or maybe I was hoping to see the same delivery boy again. I placed the order and sure enough, 30 minutes later he was at my door. "Back again?" he said with a grin, shaking off his raincoat. "Guess I'm addicted to Alfredo," I joked. He chuckled and handed me the bag. "Hey, it's the best on the menu. I don't blame you that time." I offered him a cup of tea. "You look like you could use something warm." He hesitated but nodded. "That would be nice." "Thank you." He stood at the doorway as I made him a quick cup of chamam. We talked briefly, just small talk about the weather, the restaurant, how busy he'd been that night. His name, I learned, was Jason Miller. He had just turned 18 and worked delivery shifts to save up for community college. He lived with his mom and younger sister, and he seemed incredibly grounded for someone his age. Over the next few weeks, my pasta cravings became more frequent. Jason seemed to be assigned to my area most nights, and our quick chats turned into longer ones. Sometimes he'd sit on the porch with me for a few minutes, sipping tea or just catching his breath between deliveries. One night, it was unusually cold and I noticed he looked especially tired. "Everything okay?" I asked as I handed him a hot drink. He sighed. "My bike chain broke halfway through the shift. I've been walking most of the way." "That's terrible," I said. "Come in, at least sit and warm up for a bit." He hesitated but eventually stepped inside. I pointed him to the kitchen table and handed him a towel. That night, our conversation stretched into hours. He told me about his life, how his dad had left when he was 10, how his mom worked 2 jobs, how he tried to help out as much as he could. He had dreams of studying computer science and eventually designing apps. I was struck by his sincerity, his drive, and how much responsibility he carried on his young shoulders. I told him a bit about my life too, how I'd once dreamed of becoming a novelist, how I ended up editing other people's stories instead, and how quiet the house had felt since the divorce. It was the first time in a long while that I felt like someone truly listened. After that night, Jason began stopping by even when he wasn't delivering food. Sometimes he brought coffee, sometimes just conversation. He'd help me carry groceries in or fix little things around the house. He was never pushy or inappropriate, just kind, genuinely kind. At first I worried what people might think. A woman in her 40s spending time with a teenager. But nothing about it felt wrong. He wasn't just a delivery boy. He had become a friend. Someone who brought light back into my quiet world. One Saturday I was struggling to assemble a bookshelf I'd ordered online. Jason happened to drop by to return a book I'd lent him, and he practically begged him to help. He laughed and said, "Let me guess you didn't read the instructions." We spent the whole afternoon building it together, and by the end of it, the living room was filled with laughter and the smell of pizza. That night we sat on the floor eating and talking about everything from movies to dreams to childhood memories. I hadn't laughed like that in years. As time passed, I found myself looking forward to his visits. My days felt lighter. I started writing again, not for work, but for myself. Little journal entries, short stories. It was as if his presence had unlocked a part of me I'd forgotten existed. One evening, while we were sitting on the back porch watching Thesky turn shades of purple and gold, Jason turned to me and said, "You know, Emily, you've kind of become my safe space." His words caught me off guard. "What do you mean?" He looked thoughtful. "I don't really have anyone I can talk to like this with you. I can just be me. Not the guy who has to hold everything together, just Jason." My eyes welled up a little, but I smiled. "You've done more for me than you realize, too." There was a long silence, but it was comfortable, peaceful. We didn't need to say anything else. The bond we shared was unique, not romantic, not familial. It was simply a connection built on trust, understanding, and kindness. A reminder that people can come into your life in the most unexpected ways and change everything. Eventually, Jason got a scholarship offer from a local college. He was over the moon, and I couldn't have been prouder. We celebrated with takeout and cake and had promised to still stop by even once classes started. He kept his promise, not as often, but enough looking back now. I realized how much that chapter of my life healed me. Jason reminded me of life's small joys of connection, laughter, and hope. He didn't swoop in like a hero in some dramatic story. He came with a paper bag of pasta on a rainy night and slowly brought color back into my world. He didn't just deliver food, he delivered